I would start with probably just being super clear about what you're looking for up front and being realistic with what your expectations are and what you're willing to pay for those expectations as well. Because a lot of times, some people will want, we want the world for as little as we can get it.
That was recruiting expert Michele Lambert. And today on the Built to Scale podcast, we're going somewhere we haven't gone before, the inside world of recruiting, team building, and what it actually takes to hire the right people in the online business space. Michele has been building remote teams for direct response brands and internet marketers since 2012. She supported New York Times best-selling launches, scaled multi-million-dollar companies, and most importantly, built a Rolodex of thousands of vetted A players across the globe. Plus, here's a little secret. If you're looking for your next opportunity, Michele dropped so many knowledge bombs in this episode that will really help your job search. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. And please leave us a review on this one. Now, if you're sitting, relax. If you're at the gym, pick up the pace because this episode is going to completely change the way you think about building your team. I'm Shmuel Hirschberg, and this is the Built to Scale podcast. Listen up and let's start scaling now. My guest today has spent over a decade inside some of the fastest growing online businesses, not advertising, not advising from the outside, but actually building the teams that make growth happen. She supported New York Times best-selling launches, scaled multi-million-dollar brands, and built a remote firm specifically for the online business world. Michele Lambert, welcome to the Built to Scale podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's really nice to have you as well and shed some light, in terms of the recruitment world, and maybe, we'll talk a little bit how you got into the space, talk about what recruitment or headhunting looks like in 2026. Obviously with AI, things have changed so much, but why don't we just go back to the beginning, in terms of I guess how you got into this role initially.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been in the internet marketing online business space since 2012. I helped a doctor build his online business. We launched a New York Times bestseller, all that kind of good stuff, building up the products and funnels and all that stuff. I just loved it. I loved it. And been having a lot of fun doing that for people for quite a while since. And part of that's also investing in my education and continuing growth. So I was joining all these different masterminds and I'm just meeting amazing people. And so I just started a list on a spreadsheet of who does what, so I could start connecting more people. And then that slowly turned into the Rolodex. So now we have a couple thousand members. We've got all kinds of information on them. So we're able to really share high level, high quality opportunities with just top A player talent. So it's been really fun. It's been an interesting journey. I love connecting people. And yeah, that's kind of
So
just how it evolved.
You basically went from operations marketing into this recruiting, and now you're full-time recruiting expert.
Yeah. I still do some consulting on the marketing and ops stuff. But for, team building, I'm pretty known for that specifically. And, I've been building teams since I started, in 2012
Okay.
and even before that in office teams, but building remote teams since 2012 and on to, as the operations lead, you got to have a whole fantastic team to support you to see any of your marketing efforts through. And I just love both sides of it and getting to work with incredible people and being able to see the vision and the mission kind of come to light with the amazing people you get to work with for that.
Yeah,
So
for sure. Yeah, and I definitely love the fact that it really is like a two-sided coin, because you have the entrepreneurs and the businesses that are looking for top talent, and then you have that top talent. So you're kind of working with both of them, trying to figure out how do you actually make the right introductions. But why don't we focus a little bit first on the entrepreneurs, the business owners, and what I would call, let's say, the hiring mess that founders are in. So what are some of the pitfalls in terms of senior executives, CEOs that are looking for people? What are the big mistakes that they're making when it comes to hiring talent today?
yeah, I would start with probably just being super clear about what you're looking for up front and being realistic with what your expectations are and what you're willing to pay for those expectations as well. Because a lot of times, some people will want, we want the world for as little as we can get it.
Yeah,
And sometimes that ends up happening where, and the kind of two of them combined. So the clarity on specifically what you're looking for and the kind of ideal candidate that's going to match that portfolio or that profile and be able to deliver the results that you're looking for. They also need to be, really aligned with your mission and vision and values, because otherwise they're not going to fit culture wise. And it tends to be easier to train in skills and improve skills than it is to get somebody to shift their values to match your values and your culture. But then on the same coin, when you're not super clear about all these things from the start and what the role and responsibilities look like, and you have this long list that ends up being, multiple different roles are actually meshed into one, and you're looking for just that one person who's going to fit all of those. I mean, it really narrows down exactly what you're looking, or narrows down your ability to find that person. It makes your chances a little bit slimmer, and then it also creates scope creep in the end. So they may be a rock star at one of the areas, and somebody else could support them in other areas, but just making sure that you understand and have realistic expectations around that, and being super clear, because you want to keep people around for the long haul,
for
and
sure.
having the right culture and right responsibilities and clarity is where it all starts, I think.
That really resonates with me in terms of just the expectations and the transparency. I saw this post recently on LinkedIn where it was actually a video. It was basically going through this idea where a project, someone had, let's say, 10 minutes to draw something, right, and they drew like very fine details and everything, right, and then they did the same drawing like in a minute, and you could see the quality went down, and then they did it in 10 seconds and the quality goes down further, right. And that whole idea in terms of just aligning the expectations is super super critical. But then in terms of like mission and values and stuff, are you recruiting for in-house roles or remote roles, a little bit of both? How does that work?
Yeah, for sure. I'll give you some more details there, but I want to go back to your example because I think that's a really great one. Is also like when we try to give somebody too many things and they can do all of them, but are they doing them to the level of exceptional performance that you're looking for? Like, if they had the full 10 minutes to focus on it versus that 10 seconds, what does that look like for your actual business? And that's where I see a lot of business owners doing really well with empowering their team to utilize agents, AI agents, and so on, as well as if they need VA support and things like that, so they can focus a little bit more on that, getting that high level quality result you're looking for. But yeah, like in terms of who we're typically working with, so we do focus on remote teams. I've done a few in-house I mean, not in-house, in-person roles. They're a
Okay.
little bit more difficult. I listened to an old operations person of mine who said never turn down a role, and we ended up with a in-person funeral director with all these like different things in Detroit, and I have no connection to any of that. We still made it happen and still made it work, but that's definitely far from our genius zone. We are
Wow.
working with remote internet marketers, online
Okay.
business owners, direct
And
response.
funeral directors.
Yeah, apparently. Don't advertise that. Let's cut
I
that.
was
No,
I was
okay.
not expecting that, but then
I
but
wasn't
then in
either.
terms of like mission, aligning mission, how critical is that for a remote? I've had people that I've worked with, and I've worked with them for several years, and I've never met them in person. So how critical is the mission alignment, and values when you're doing a remote hire?
I think it's really important, especially for a remote hire, because your values and your mission and your vision is all coming through in your day to day work life and the way that the team is interacting, the way they're performing, what they're delivering. So even though you're remote and you're not seeing people face to face, you're still kind of leaning on those. Like your expectations lean on those. The way you run your meetings, the way you run the team, the who, how communication works, all of that kind of runs down into those key pieces there. And it also makes sure that people are aligning so they understand, if they're excited about the mission and the vision, then they're going to be more excited to ideate, come up with new ways and new strategies and new ways to support that mission. Whereas, people who aren't super into it, they're just there for the job and it being remote and so on. They're kind of just like, popping along, pressing the buttons, and in the long run, like they're easier to be snatched from another company because they're not fully invested in what you're building, and they're not going to be ideating, they're not going to be, overly performing, and they're not loving everything about it. that's a huge red flag. Whereas if you get people who, are values aligned, values can be something simple. Like I have some clients who they, very growth focused. So they speak about that, but then they also allow trainings into the group. So they have like a knowledge vault where they do cross team trainings. They do, ways that people they invest in different sponsorships for masterminds, things like that. So ways people can continue growth. So if your value is to continue learning and growing all the time, then you're going to do really well at a company like that. Whereas, maybe not so much at one that's a little less interested in investing in those things.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's been
And
your experience in that realm? Sorry.
in terms of working remotely,
Yeah, yeah.
I, I would definitely say that the most important thing I think is probably ethics and work ethic. Those are probably going to be, if I all of a sudden morphed into a headhunter, I would say that those are the two things that I would look out for the most, because when you never meet the person, right? You want to make sure that you actually align with this person, that you could actually trust this person from a business perspective and also from a personal perspective, and make sure that, when they say that they're coming to do the job, they're going to do the job, right? Hours might be, maybe asynchronous in terms of hours and stuff. So that's also super important, that you could actually trust the person.
Absolutely. I definitely agree with that there because you need to have that level of trust in a remote environment. And that comes through, what you're delivering and how you guys are communicating and how you're able to contribute to the team. It doesn't, in a remote space, I think it's obviously a little bit different than the typical in-person corporate. You have your certain ways that you have your whatever it's called, water jug talk or
Yep.
something. You know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about?
Yep.
Where with it in a remote environment, it's a lot different. You have to get to know that quickly, how much you can trust somebody. Are they aligned with your ethics? Because especially in a marketing department, like there's some shadier things that can happen, and you want to ensure that doesn't happen for your company, or that the company doesn't expect that of you too, because you're not going to be happy doing that.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And then in terms of just onboarding a new employee at a remote company versus in person, do you see any difference in terms of like being fully onboarded, when it comes to that?
Yeah, to be totally fair, I mean, I have not been in an in-person situation since 2011 or 12, so it's been a
Okay.
long time. The remote space, I mean, I think in terms of onboarding, it's the same thing. Like you need to be super clear about your expectations. So your 90-day, I would set, ensure that there's a 90-day plan in place. Ensure that the new candidate knows about that. That's part of why I tell people in that initial period of getting clear is like we need to see what your 90-day desired outcomes are, as well as 6 months and a year, and do it by 30, 60, 90, and then 6 months and 1 year. And then that way it sets you up to hit certain KPIs with this new team member. And then they know the direction that they're going for. They know what you're looking for. So being super clear in that in your onboarding, as well as getting them the information they need. So I make sure clients set up an onboarding documentation that includes like all the links they need, checking off that they're getting the right logins, that they know where to go for this and who to go to for what. Otherwise, they're just sitting there asking the owner the same things over and over, and the owner's just like doesn't have time for that. They're like, oh, I didn't hire somebody to add more to my plate. I hired it for less.
So how do you help business owners, really find, get down to it, and sharpen the job request, so that they're not going to waste time down the road?
Yeah, that's part of it is I run them through a process where we're getting those desired outcomes. That's a big part of, what we are looking
Okay.
for. And we utilize that as your 90-day KPI setting. So and you can also do this in a way where I've seen people utilize a kind of like a case study for their like top two final candidates, and they'll have them do a setup of like what would you do in the first 90 days, and then they like to use that as their KPI setting. So
And then you're going backwards from there,
yeah.
like
And
in
then
terms
from
of.
there, well, from there, you're going forward. You're like, because you see exactly what you're having set up in advance.
Okay, no, I meant like, after you're saying, like, when you set up that job description, you're going first, you're building out what is that 90-day, once someone's fully employed and in the role for 90 days, what are they accomplishing, what are they doing, and then you're building backwards, right? You're not starting off saying like, oh, we're looking for someone who has like a degree in marketing or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Somebody who can accomplish what those desired outcomes are going to be. And a lot of times it's not exactly what, AI is going to pump out for you in your job description. It's not as So it becomes a lot clearer when you know what your desired outcomes are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then how long does like the recruitment process take? Like,
Yeah, that depends. So we've had, because we have such an incredible network, and I know you've been an amazing person to help as well. We've seen really great results in, people getting hired within 4 weeks for their, VP of marketing or ops and things like that. But I typically tell people it takes about 6 to 8 weeks. You'll start seeing results in 2 to 4 weeks of candidates to actually review. We tend to do, video ask interviews and things like that. So the client is also able to, review their initial responses, share it with the team, and everybody kind of get ready so you can move faster in the hiring process. Having those kind of basic questions out of the way, the candidates don't have to repeat themselves multiple times to different people, and they're able to better evaluate. Is this a fit, and where is it a fit that we can make any adjustments, kind of thing.
and if it's taking longer than that, what would be the reason for that?
Usually it comes down to clarity in the beginning. So I've noticed that before. So I've tried to jump too fast on things before, and skip that part of like getting the desired outcomes or the clarity and around the role and position. And it comes down later to, what your expectations aren't actually being seen, because the expectations of, what was written on the job description is actually not specifically what you're looking for. You're looking for this thing. And yeah, it kind of is outlined there, but it's a little bit more vague. So I'd say that's one of them, especially when it's highly skilled. And then the other one is compensation. So I've also seen it where, they're trying to hit a lower number, but in order to attract the right talent, you need to at least put in a higher number, allow them the ability to negotiate so you can actually see the level of talent that's coming in at the different ranges. And I mean, when you're looking at it, let's say you put up 85 to 95 for this one position. In reality, if you'd put up 80 to 120, you would get a wider range of people. You see the different kind of opportunities and options that you have, how they're going to fit in. And is that 10, 20,000 a year, or maybe it's 1,000 extra a month or something like that, for somebody who's going to be a lot more high level, who's exactly what you want in the same location and all that kind of stuff. Is that extra $1,000 a month going to be worth what you're going to make by choosing the person who's looking for that higher?
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting the way you can let math manipulate the game. Like if you break it down to like bite-sized, mini-sized numbers, like, oh, it's just $1,000 a month. Will we cover that with this hire? Will they bring that on? Yes, no. As opposed to looking at it like, for the whole year, and it's like, oh wow, it's an extra $12,000. It's interesting how the mind plays that game.
Absolutely. And it makes a big difference too, because the candidate, especially right now, most candidates they're not even looking at jobs that are under six figures.
Hmm.
Depending on what the level is and what they're looking for and things like that. But a lot of the ones that we're looking at and working with aren't looking for anything under six figures. So what you list at is incredibly important.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And what's like the most underrated signal? Shifting over a little bit, maybe to the candidate side of thing, like in terms of and for those looking for a job, I think this is the part where you got to like perk your ears up and listen, because we're going to get into some good questions here. I want to speak about like just in terms of like the most underrated signal that you're seeing today that a candidate brings to the table.
In terms of like something really positive to be looking out for.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, does like a fancy degree is, I think within the last 20 years, 25 years, I think that has been maybe a little bit on the decline in certain, and I would venture to say like in the markets that we're talking about, like direct response and e-commerce, as opposed to, let's say, the financial space, which might still, honor and hold those in very, very high regard.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure banking, lawyers, things like that, the degrees are incredibly important. However, in direct response, e-com, the internet marketing space that we're working in, it is very not important. In fact, I think a lot of people prefer somebody who has the background and experience in companies similar to this, as opposed to looking at what a degree might say. That being said, the other opportunities that are really positive to look at is that they're still growth focused. So they're still investing in mastermind training, courses, communities, things like that, that support their growth within this space specifically. So it's kind of just alternative education. And then also how they're utilizing AI. And ensuring that they are using it to optimize their performance, and that's shared throughout their application process as well. They're able to speak really well to it, things like that. Because yeah, I think that's important.
Yeah, about AI. Nowadays, obviously, it's very simple to get a job description, to see one of your job descriptions, and then just copy it, and then either just tell AI to go to my LinkedIn and make, match them and merge them and mesh them together, or I could, use a previous resume. How important is that to customize your resume for the actual job that the person is posting?
Very important. Very important. Like I may know, like this happens all the time. So I may know that you have experience in this type of marketing, this type of copy, this type of, ads buying, things like that, or I may see it in other places. But if it's not explicitly stated, like this performance marketing experience, this, maybe email marketing experience, things like that on your actual resume, clients actually like they're going through the resume and the CV first, and they're like Xing it. So while I may have that information, if it's not very visible on the resume and CV, they exit pretty quickly. And if it's not me doing it on top of that, there's also there's most recruiters, most people, hiring managers, things like that, they're actually using AI to review and vet your applications. So if you don't have this custom information, the keywords that they're looking for on your application and on your resume and CV, then they just automatically nix it. So if you want to stand out, I mean, you need to have the keywords that they're looking for, as well as the titles and explanation of where you helped and supported in a role similar to that.
For better or for worse, do you see that as being a positive or a negative, like in terms of that? Because
Like
on
AI
the one hand,
vetting.
it's just very easy. It's like, okay, I just put the right, jargon that they were looking for in the job description, and I kind of got through. Now again, if it's an AI savvy position, that makes sense, right? But if it's not, right, how, do you feel like, okay, maybe we should just take a step back here and reevaluate that? Or is that like, just the way things are, and everyone should just adapt to that?
I mean, I even before AI was like really being heavily used, I was recommending that people tailor your resume and your CV to the job description. And I'm not saying change your titles and things like that, but in where you put bullet points and stuff like that, give a specific like with this. Maybe it's with Facebook spend. I was able to optimize this campaign from this result to this result and things like that, that like give actual details and data and numbers, and, ensure that your keywords, like if you have experience, like don't lie on it, obviously, because that's going to be found out, and it is found out quickly. Like there's definitely people that we blacklist, that we know, like they say one thing, but what actually happened was this, and we're, different things like that. And it's not just us. There's, it's a small space, and a lot of companies talk, and they all know. So I would say, be aware of that. Don't try to lie about it, but because it will also come out later in the interview process too. So there's also other additional application questions that we are utilizing to really like ensure that what's being said is correct, and that you have the skills that we're looking for. But then there's also the video ask, and if you're not able to like actually speak to the skills that you say you have, I mean, that's a pretty clear indicator right there that you won't be moving.
Do you have any funny stories? I guess it's not funny. It's maybe sad, but any
Yeah.
any any stories that people left stuff in the resume that was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe someone did this.
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily. I'm not going to give specific examples, but I will say that there's, sometimes like people will put like C-suite level roles. They'll put like a bunch of C-suite level roles and just like a ton of bullets. Like I've seen people send resumes and CVs that are 5, 6 pages. You want it to be, 1 to 2 pages, 3 max if you're going to include a portfolio on there and links to like different types
Okay.
of your marketing and things like that. But little things like that I think matter. Also, there's been like, someone will say their location is this one country and a state in this country, and it's actually somewhere else. And we know that because the client found out they were working in the middle of the night and that they were actually located in this other state or country. And but then it's like still on the resume, and it keeps coming through like that. And it's like those little things that matter to people, and like, especially in some of these roles, it makes a big difference. And so I'd say things like that. There's also been like not giving enough information, or not giving dates, not having dates on there. I understand that, like, especially in this space, there's a lot of contractor positions. You're not always working for them a long time. But if you put on there that information, that makes a lot more sense than just not having a date and how long you were working with them. Like if you put contractor for this amount a month, or, project based, like things like that, like make a difference rather than just skipping it all together.
Uh huh. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, honesty is the best policy, I guess, when it comes to this, and don't do anything that I guess what's more detrimental of not getting the job would be that you get on Michelle's blacklist, or the recruiters are talking about, so and so in the space, that would be a lot more detrimental than just not getting the position. But then what
Well, and
about,
it's not
yeah,
me. It's not just me either. Like, and I'm not intentionally, I'm not saying it's like a hard blacklist, but I'm aware of like the things that they say versus what the client is experiencing because clients do come back to us and let us know different results, what's been happening, things like that. And experiences with different people. And so it's not just us that they say that to. There's obviously a lot of people in this space talk to each other. And so there's, also I'll put somebody through and a client will say, oh, hey, I heard this back from so and so. And so I don't think they're going to be a fit from us. So it's not just our list. It's actually the clients who are they're talking to their friends too, other fellow business owners and finding that out. So
interesting.
yeah.
Interesting. And then in terms of like applying, I've heard many different opinions about this, but at the end of the day, what is the best way to apply for a role? Like, you see someone on LinkedIn or you post a job. Is it best to apply just straight up, or do you need an introduction nowadays? What really works?
I would recommend you always apply straight up first before asking for anything else. So just apply because the thing with like sending a DM, asking for introductions, all this stuff, most of the time, like DMs and messages are not checked nearly as often as the actual applications. It's also who's reviewing the application. The hiring manager is a different person that might be posting it. And so things will cross, like wires will get crossed, things will get missed, things like that. So if you actually apply first and you have your application in, and if you want to ask for an intro or you want to ask for something like that because you know them, then you can say something or you can shoot them a message. But I would caution that if you're directly messaging people, like if you don't follow their process, most often business owners have a specific process that they put in the application process, in the application how to apply kind of section.
Okay.
It's use this subject line and send an email with this and this, or it's whatever. And the point of adding little tweaks in there, I've seen people add like little outlier requests and things like that, is because if somebody doesn't follow those exact rules, they immediately eliminate them. It's similar to like if they don't have this exact level of ad spend, then it's an immediate no. Like it's different things like that. So first, always apply and follow their exact instructions, do what they requested. If you feel like you want to also send a message, go for it. If you want to ask for an intro, go for it. Just be aware that more often than not, the clients are looking for people who are following the steps. And then
Okay.
additionally, I've had people reach out to the client, like see something that we post and then reach out to the client directly. And then the client comes back to us and requests that we remove all the company information because they're getting inundated with messages and they don't want that. Like
That, yeah,
yeah.
I can understand if they're going to a recruiter, they're basically outsourcing it for a recruiter. Yeah, I do want to get to scale, but before that, I just have one question, maybe about the hiring process, and if someone's looking for a job right now, maybe this could help them. They get through to the interview stage, or that they pass the resume stage where they the recruiter or the company gets back to them. What makes a candidate unforgettable at the next stage in terms of, let's say, any interview, the first interview, second interview, the interview with the CEO? What can you tell us that will help candidates really stand out from their perspective?
I mean, as simple as like just being prepared, knowing about the company, having ideas and recommendations, like especially if you're looking at a marketing role and let's say like show a little bit of your expertise in it, be able to like share, like be able to ask questions that are relevant to the role in the company and exactly what you're looking for, ensure that you're, interviewing to make sure it's a fit for you too. But then also be able to share things like, oh, I saw this, and this going on, and I think this could be helped and improved in this way. If, at some point you're willing to test this after we've, don't try to push it too far. Like, don't, you want to follow like what's working for them because business owners really want to, follow their process, what's been working for them and so on. But then you also want to say, and I'd love to test something like this down the road because I think that this would work for these reasons. This is kind of data I have to back it, things like that. So just being prepared and having some good questions and good ideas, I think is really helpful.
Okay, nice. And then just going over to scaling and stuff in terms of businesses and helping businesses scale. Are there any roles that are, if you're speaking to a founder or CEO and maybe you're just reviewing a couple of things with them and they have some ideas in terms of okay, we need this role, that role, and another role, right? Are there any like specific roles that you're like, well, if you want to scale your business today, right, you need X, Y, or Z? Like what can you fill us in on that?
Yeah, that's kind of hard to say because it's definitely going to be like dependent on where they are in their business, what their current team looks like, what their, bottlenecks and pain points are. For example, if they're doing fantastic in marketing and all these other areas, but they're falling through on fulfillment or they're falling through on just organization, they could do better in marketing if they were more organized. Operations are important, obviously. They're often overlooked, especially in the marketing space. I think more people are coming to realize how important and helpful they are to have the right systems and processes in place, and the right organization. And then at the flip side, it's your marketing as well. It's your sales. It's really dependent on exactly what your current state is, where you are with your current team, and what your biggest bottlenecks are. What are they needing to be able to thrive? What are you needing to be able to stick in your genius zone and really and grow from there? And then ensuring everybody has the support and tools and ability to utilize what they need for increasing their performance.
Okay. So there's no specific answer in terms of
I'd say that's hard to say. Like if you have let's say you do have operations in place, but you're feeling like the marketing's still not great, then maybe performance marketer, conversion optimization specialist. Is it that your leads aren't as great? Like, is your sales and marketing team speaking to each other? Are they actually, like maybe sales aren't closing and maybe that's because things in the marketing side aren't going through. And I think, especially with businesses in this space, like it's really important to have the whole team looking at things. So customer support, sales, marketing, operations to all be speaking to each other and checking in on like how is the customer speaking to them, to the customer support, what kind of things are they asking for, so you can create new products, so you can optimize your marketing, so you can utilize that in your sales calls. What are people in the sales team hearing when they get on these calls? Like what are their objections, things like that the marketing team can start preparing for, supporting them in overcoming those objections and also utilizing that in their marketing. And then same with making sure the marketing and sales are aligned in what's said. So it's very dependent on where you are in your business, but I think there's a million ways to go with that answer. It's going to be very specific to a business.
do companies ever come to you and say like, hey, Michele, like we want to scale, we're at X amount of revenue per month, and we want to grow by 10, 15, 20% month over month and really scale this year, but we just don't know where we should be. Are you helping companies figure that out?
Yeah, in where their their next two hires are, like their current org chart, their ideal or scaling org chart, as well as like who their next hires would be, and what KPIs to be hitting before you make those hires, what to expect from those hires. Like, yes, we set up all of that as well as the actual recruiting and team building side. So it
Well,
depends
that's
on what clients are
fascinating.
looking for, but yeah, we're kind of an all in one
So
place.
you're more of a partner for like a growth partner for a lot of these brands and
Yes.
online companies.
Yes.
Very cool, very cool. And what else is Bella Communications like focusing on in the next like 6 to 12 months?
Oh my gosh, 6 to 12 months. I feel like I'm just getting through the next 3 months. I try to do like, I don't know if you've read this book. It's called The 12-Week Year. So you're planning things like by every 12 weeks or every quarter, reviewing what's working, what's not working, and then, planning the next quarter based on that. Because, I could plan out an entire year of stuff. And if people aren't responding to it, like it's absolutely useless for me. So, what I've been, at least that's how I do it. I have like a bigger picture of where I'd like to go for
Okay.
the year. But in terms of, where we are now and where we're going. So there's a few things in the line. This month, I'm working with actually a couple other women in the space, and we've built out programs for anybody looking for landing a six-figure plus gig. We're seeing so many of our friends losing their jobs right now to AI and different things like that, that we are trying to find ways to help people, land their next position and find their next dream team. So we've got, a whole specific job board for that. We've got a whole, training programs. We've got different interview gyms, like, where you can practice your interview skills, resume optimizers, all of that. So that's going live in the next couple weeks. I think the coming soon thing is up now. And then or optimizing the job board so that we can also bring in more, like the Bella Connections job board, so we can bring in more opportunities to people, because I really want to bring more opportunities to the space, connect our community with more ops. So I'm partnering with a lot of different people to bring in their opportunities to our job board. We've also released a new membership program so that people can just get access to our community and our network, because it's very specific to direct response, and people who are looking for like a quick hire or a quick response on something are able to, get connected quickly to the right people to support them. So those are a few of them. We're also doing a partner portal and highlighting different partners
That's awesome.
and things like that. So yeah, we have a few things, coming. We're just trying to really help people, find their dream team, but also grow and scale their business with the right talent in place.
Yeah, and I think I said Bella Communications, so I apologize. I did mean to say Bella Connections before.
I knew what you said. I knew what you were thinking. It's all good. Bella
Yeah.
Connections.
Okay. Nice. Nice. So in terms of these hires and stuff, like in terms of AI, so like that's taking people's jobs away. I imagine, and I think it's gonna be a topic that people are gonna be talking about over the next several months or more. I know you spoke about the 12-week year, so it might be a little bit more than 12 weeks. So
Ongoing
where
forever.
or going forever, exactly. So where do you think HR hiring, the industry as a whole, like what's exactly gonna happen when AI takes over? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I think the biggest players who are doing the best are empowering their team with AI right now. They're giving them the time and the space for agents. They're asking them to build out more so that they can 10x their production. I saw one friend the other day. I know that's their own agency, but they had like 5 different accounts going with 5 different computers running, just mass producing ads like crazy to test. And they were just so jamming out and excited about it. And I think that the right companies are going to empower their team to do things like that so that they can be pumping out so much more, and they can performing better, focusing on ways to improve the company and their team and their time, so that they can grow and scale together. I think that there's also, of course, going to be, it's unfortunate that there's been already a lot of loss in jobs. We just saw Meta laid off a ton of, like, 8,000 people. Oracle, I think, laid off 30,000 recently. Like, there's been a ton of layoffs, and I feel like that's going to continue. I hate seeing it. However, I don't know. There's different books you read, like there's that abundance book by Peter Diamandis, where they think that eventually, humans are just going to have time to be free and do what we want. And I'd love to think that's a reality. That's obviously very far down the road. So I do have a little bit of concern and worries about AI replacing people now. And I think the best way to combat that is just to really empower yourself with AI and make sure your skills are so leveled up, and that you are performing, communicating, working, networking, and optimizing the way that your output, so that you are, I guess, yeah, so that you're more irreplaceable, or so that you're more, people still want to work with people. I even talked to a business owner the other day. They're 7-8 figure business owner, and they don't even use AI in their business. They only want to work with team members. They don't care if their team members using AI, but they don't personally get into it because they want to work with other team members. And I think a lot of people, in the end, I think that what we're going to find is that we're going to come back. Everybody's getting excited about it now. A lot of things are being cut, all that kind of stuff. I think in the long run, I'm hopeful that people will come back around and realize how much we need that human connection in order for us to actually do really high quality jobs, to deliver, to really get into the marketing and everything else. But I also think that I think there's going to eventually be a combination. There's also countries, sorry, last thing. There's also countries like, I think it's China, who just put in one of the courts just basically ruled that there was a man who created an AI, and he'd been working on it for years and years and years, and he was the one working on it and setting it up for this company and everything. And then they eventually let him go because the AI was able to replace him, the very AI he created.
Okay.
And so there's a judge in China actually ruled that is illegal. They can no longer be fully replacing somebody with an agent. So they have to figure out another way to do it. I don't know how far that's going to go. And that's obviously a different country, but I think at some point I'm hopeful that there will be something in place to ensure people aren't like fully just on their butts, because the way it feels right now and it's going right now does feel very disheartening and scary in some ways. And also optimistic in others. So yeah, that's a
Yeah.
very long-winded, unsure way of saying I have no idea, but I'm hopeful and scared.
I think we all are. And so what about like in terms of career coaching for yourself? Do you do any of that? I mean, it sounds like a lot of people are going to have to pivot or learn new skills or second career, third career, whatever you want to call it, and they're going to need to speak to people and turn to people. Is this something that you're doing or have thought about doing?
The new program I'm putting out with the other women is called Level A, and it's for anybody looking for six-figure jobs, and it will have a big aspect of it that's career coaching. So we will have, a lot of stuff in there that's going to be helpful for people that are, in this transition period. So I'm kind of putting a lot of energy into that this next couple weeks and months. And that's what I see. But yeah, I don't know outside of that. Just trying to put out new ways for people to get more access to opportunities. I've considered some, tools and resources and things like that we have. But if you have recommendations, I'd be happy to create them.
Yeah, yeah. And what about just like in terms of like questions that nobody thinks, or I don't know, you might even tell me, like in terms of, we've been speaking for a bit now, right? What are the questions that you wish like people would just ask you, like in terms of like whether they're trying to get hired or they're looking for people, like what is it that you wish people would just ask you?
It's a good question. I think it comes back down to clarity. I think a lot of times they're coming with this, they feel like they have to come with an idea of exactly what they want, exactly what they need, things like that. But a lot of times, like, I'm more here to help you get that clarity and to support you in that. So you can have you can have an idea and a direction. That's great if you do. If you don't, you just need support. Like we can help you with that too. And just asking the right questions to help you, get clear on that next direction and what you're looking for, or, the team that you're looking to hire, things like that. So um, I guess it's more so that we don't all have to have it figured out. And same thing with me too, is like I sometimes go into things, I'm like, I have to have all my ideas ready and everything figured out and organized, and it doesn't always have to be like that. Actually talking to people is helpful, and it doesn't have to just be me. It's just bouncing ideas off of your colleagues and friends too, asking how they have something set up, how what they're seeing, how they got this dream position, and what they think of this new offer you're creating, or how they have their team set up. Like I think leaning on each other in that connection aspect of business is going to be really important in the long run.
Yeah, that human connection and just people expanding and deepening their network.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
it's really relying more and more on your network and being able to just connect with people and grow together. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but like when it comes to like Facebook, for example, someone was speaking to me about it. I'm not sure if it was a friend. I forget who it was, but I basically told them I use Facebook like LinkedIn today. I use it as a business network, and I'm posting more often than not to my network. So, I'm not, I don't want the person who lives down the block from me, say like, oh, I saw you on your podcast or something like that. So I'm not like posting there to just a general wide audience, but I'm using it as a targeting tool to really target to my audience, to speak to my audience, to grow my audience. And I actually find it like to be a better tool nowadays than LinkedIn.
I absolutely agree. I think a lot of people, like, I'm using LinkedIn and Facebook, and I think Facebook is definitely a better one because there's so many communities in our network specifically that run off of Facebook groups. That's where we've connected with a lot of people. It's been like that for years. It doesn't just change in a few weeks, and also a lot of complaints about LinkedIn. So one of my bigger projects is going to resolve that. I'm not going to say too much on that one yet, but
All right.
we have some things in the works, and I think yeah, keep making sure that you're sharing like what it is you do, sharing, podcasts that you're doing, sharing about your business, your company, how you've helped people and things like that. I think you can put it on Facebook and LinkedIn because it doesn't hurt to have it on both, but it's certainly in my opinion, it has been a little bit more helpful on Facebook. And then in terms of other people seeing it, like it does kind of feel funny, but honestly, I get a lot of good feedback from like family and friends. So whether it's something about my business or something, sometimes I share a little bit more personal stuff too. they don't always comment or say something, but then in person they'll say something, and it feels great. But yeah, sometimes my neighbors will ask me what my Facebook is. I'm like, I don't know if that you want that. I literally only talk about business, I
Yeah.
talk a lot. So
Yeah. Yeah. I'm definitely on board in terms of like commenting to people in person that I know. I would like to say, like in the last year or two, I've tried to be to an extent anal about wishing people happy birthday on Meta. I also find it as a useful tool. Like if someone's birthday comes up and I just haven't interacted with this person ever, I'm like, well, maybe I shouldn't be. I don't know. So I use it as like as a siphoning tool as well. But going back to people that I do know, so I will try to use that as my Rolodex for when people's birthdays are, and when I see them, wish them a happy birthday in person. Sometimes they kind of just like do like a double take and like, how do you know it was my birthday?
Facebook.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense. I do that too. Like removing people that I don't actually know or haven't seen in a long, I don't actually interact with.
Yeah.
Because there was a time I feel like we were in these groups and just so many you still get it, like so many random requests, but there was a time I was saying yes, thinking it was normal, and now I'm like, dang it, why did I do that? So it's a great way to eliminate people, but then also, like, I think it's nice to send people a happy birthday, and it doesn't always have to be like any intention behind it besides like wishing somebody. Like, I always read them and I always smile, and I'm so grateful for the people who say that. Like, it doesn't have to be like, we don't have to do it like, it doesn't have to be like, hey, happy birthday, how's business, or something like that. Like, obviously I know you don't do that, but yeah,
Yeah.
it can be just a point of connection, and I think that that's important to keep.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, this has been really, really insightful, and thank you so much for the tips about, in terms of just people who are recruiting, people who are looking for jobs. I think this episode's going to go down as one of the best. So thank you for coming on the Built to Scale podcast and sharing your wisdom. Quick question: How can people get in touch with you?
By the way, this has been amazing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's been really fun. Glad you invited me, and you can get in touch with me. The website's bellaconnections.com. We've got a Rolodex, job board, all kinds of stuff linked there, as well as a community and regular referral parties. So bellaconnections.com, or I'm on Facebook. It's Michele with one L Lambert, and then LinkedIn, of course.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much again for coming on. It's been a real pleasure to have you on.
It's been so awesome. Thank you, Sheila. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Built to Scale podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss a conversation about what it really takes to build and scale in today's market. For more information about Built to Scale and how we help companies grow, visit builttoscale.co. If you have suggestions for future guests or topics, send us a note at podcast@builttoscale.co. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, this is your host, Shmuel Hirschberg. And remember to keep building, keep testing,